So let me touch the third rail, which is universities. A number of us are tenured professors, just so you know. But let's talk a little bit about higher education. There's no doubt the universities have a lot to atone for. I would be the first to say that over the last several years, we went through a period of time in which I don't think we had viewpoint diversity in our universities, in which I don't think that we were sufficiently protective of free speech, in which perhaps there was a kind of orthodoxy. But there are some who worry that we're now swinging the other way, that if we're not careful, we're just going to end up with an orthodoxy on the other side. You couldn't say certain things in 2022, but now you can't say other things in 2026. How do you think about it? The University of Florida in Florida has been kind of ground zero for some of these issues. You've got a really great new president that many people admire, including myself. But how do you balance this issue of making sure that we're teaching critical thinking, not teaching our students what to think, but teaching them how to think?
Well, you know, I think the Wall Street Journal referred to the University of Florida as the Harvard for the unwoke a couple years ago. And I took a lot of pride in that because, you know, so the orthodoxy that we've seen for you know, quite a while, but I think it was really when you saw the October 7th aftermath, what was happening at the Columbias and some of these other places, you know, I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes. You know, that's not the way, obviously, a university should be functioning. And part of it was just the disorder, how that was impacting other students. You know, you can go out and sing from the rooftops, whatever you want, but you can't threaten a student. You can't block a faculty member because they're Jewish from going into their classroom. You know, you can't just disrupt and shout down. So that's conduct. And I think they've let the inmates run the asylum for a long time. So that a lot of people saw that, like, what is going on? I can tell you in Florida, you know, you can say what you want, but your conduct, you will be held accountable for your conduct. You don't have a right to commandeer the lawn at the university for your political agenda. And when you try to do that, they tried to do it at Florida State. They turned the sprinklers on and they were gone in 10 minutes. And so that didn't work out there. But you don't have a right to do that. You don't have a right to scream and not let somebody talk on that. And when after October 7th, I was telling the group earlier, people said, man, you're really lucky. You didn't have any of those problems, you know, in Florida's universities. I was like, well, it's not really luck. I was like, everybody that's running a state university in Florida knows that if they were to allow that to happen on their campuses, they would no longer be running a state university in Florida. It just, we wouldn't tolerate it. So I think from that, I think it's done a lot to damage, particularly elite education with some of the stuff that's gone on. But just from, I think a lot of the orthodoxy is counterproductive. You don't want to be graduating students who never have their assumptions challenged, who are able to just kind of parrot the party line, regardless of what side. You want people to be able to think critically. That's one of the reasons why we've done a lot of speech and debate now in Florida, in our high schools. We have a massive program now. We didn't used to have that because, you know, if you have to stand up and make an argument on something, you can't just be buried in your phone. You know, you can't just, no, you got to get up. You got to try to persuade people. You know, I think that's important. But I think it's even better if you're told, you know, you have to argue the other side of that issue. So maybe you're somebody that hates firearms. You think the Second Amendment's not good. No, you got to argue in favor of the Second Amendment and why that's important in a republic. And then you got to get outside your comfort zone, and you have to do that. So, you know, I want to see a wide variety of viewpoints. I want to see people's orthodoxies challenged. That's what really we're doing at the University of Florida, but or in our Florida State University system. But I think the reality is the muscle memory has gone in one direction on the left for so long that, like, you know, we got to consciously try to figure out how are you going to be able to do things. So, like, you know, you have Hoover here, which is obviously very famous and has been well regarded for a long time. We've started things like at Florida International, we have the Adam Smith Center. Miami's the Gateway to the Americas. Pretty much any center-right former head of state in the Western Hemisphere has gone and spoken there, talking about economic freedom, talking about the rule of law. Really been great for students. We have a small public liberal arts college, public liberal arts college in Sarasota called New College. I got elected, I had someone say they wanted to talk to me about New College, and I didn't know what it was. I was like, why do we need a new college? We've got enough college. No, it's this place in Sarasota. Well, it was like a Marxist commune. I mean, left of the left, no grades. The test scores had gone down. It was supposed to be our top honors college. So I put conservative reformers on the board. They did things like eliminate some of the, the woke studies stuff that they were doing and said, you know what, we're going to be focused on the classical mission of a university. But you know what they do? They bring in people to have big debates. They bring in conservative speakers to debate liberal speakers. We've had some very famous people on both sides of these issues come in and now go to New College and are doing it. And now the enrollment is swelled, the test scores have gone up. And honestly, it's like, if that's your cup of tea as a parent, I know there's like Hillsdale, some of these others. Would you rather be in Michigan in January or Sarasota in January visiting your kid? So it's really good. And at University of Florida, we have the Hamilton Center for civic leadership. And basically, we want to be good stewards of the values that have built Western civilization. That should not be a lost art. That should be something that's central. It's not really Republican or Democrat, and it shouldn't even be left or right, because this is the foundation that has made the United States successful, that has made the Western world successful, and we should embrace those values and those things. There's nothing new under the sun. The values that our founding fathers put forward to found this country, they didn't just make them up. This is born out of really conscientious study of the sweep of history. They drew from religion, they drew from enlightening thinking, they drew from a lot of different things. But I believe that those principles were not time limited. I think they're enduring. And I think they're just as relevant today as they were then. Now, you have to apply them maybe differently, different circumstances. You got to make sure you're faithfully applying them, but they are just as relevant. So that's what I want. I want our universities to be a place where the Western tradition is upheld, where people can debate these really significant things. And yes, focus on, obviously you guys are doing a lot of, really important stuff in science and technology. We work really hard. Our engineering stuff has gone up, all this stuff. We have one of the NVIDIA supercomputers at University of Florida. One of the founders is an alum. He did it like 6 years ago when the stock price was a little less than it has gotten to. But so we have that. So we embrace that, but it's got to be rigorous. And I believe there's right answers, right? Like we do not want to be in a situation where truth is relative, because it's not. So I think we're doing it right in Florida. We've had to push in a different direction. And I think sometimes that ruffles feathers in academia. But honestly, I think a lot of what we're doing used to be just what everyone thought you would get on university campuses.